Hey everyone, this is D Hayes with the Guild Group 2. I am a Windwalker main. We just killed Imonar this past week, and I figured it'd be a good idea to do a log review. Log review is a great way to get better. It's something that I haven't done recently, but it's one way to improve yourself the most. The way you do that is by using Warcraft logs or a similar website. This is the most popular and by far the best one I know of. To use, you just need to download the app after you sign in and then run combat logs during a raid. And after you sign in, you can go to your little portrait, select the character that you want to review, and you can see a bunch of stuff about him. Obviously, I have Imonar on the left-hand side. I have one log since I just killed him, and I'm on Mythic, which is correct. So let's go into it. Now you're on the screen, you can see an overview of all your parses. If this was a different fight, such as Garathi, I've killed him 6 times, so I have 6 logs listed. This is pretty good to see how you're progressing week by week. But for this, we're looking at Imonar. So to get to the log itself from here, you just click on the DPS, and you're at the summary screen for the overall fight. Since I want to look at myself specifically, I would go to All Sources and select my name. So now it automatically takes you to the damage done, but I like to go to the Summary tab. Summary tab gets you a lot of good information that's actually very important for you to look at. The first thing is the player talents. Lets you make sure that you have the correct talents. If for some reason I was doing this fight and it was required for me to have Chi Wave to max out my DPS, and I say I have Eye of the Tiger, and I know, hey, make sure you have the right talents before going into the fight. Luckily enough for Windwalker, you don't really change talents. Eye of the Tiger versus Chi Wave is negligible with the tier 21, so what I have is pretty good. Another great thing is the gear. Lets you look at the gear and make sure you're wearing the right stuff. For Windwalker and a lot of other classes, you wear different gear based on whether it's a single target fight or an AoE fight. Imonar is single target. I see I'm wearing the One Blows and the Emperor's Capacitor, which is correct. And then I also see I'm wearing 4-piece. So I got the shoulders, legs, the back, and the hands. And it also lets you check your enchants and your gems. It looks like I have everything gemmed and enchanted properly. I have my back enchant, I have my neck enchant, and I have my 2 finger enchants. That's really all you need to look at on this page. If you have a death, you can see it here. Hopefully, you have none. Next step I really like to go to is the player stats. This is just a quick check to make sure I was actually wearing the correct gear on top of this. Sometimes I like to increase my haste if it's an AoE fight, but then I may forget when I'm looking through here. I don't really look in details at the rings necessarily, so I do take a quick glance at this. Next is the buffs. For Windwalker, buffs are pretty important. There's only a few, but they are very, very critical. I like to sort my damage buffs by name just because it makes it easier to go through. First one is pots. Did you use 2 pots? Yes. I go down here to Potion of Prolonged Power since that's what I use, and I have 2, which is correct. The reason I brought it up into the graph is because you usually like to use your pot with Bloodlust. So I like to pop that up here using the plus sign, and then I'll pop the Bloodlust graph up using the plus sign, and I can see I have them matched up. One thing I am noticing though is my Potion of Prolonged Power ended right about here. Let's reset this. Yeah, so it looks like the boss flew into the bridge phase around the 340 mark. so I actually lost a massive amounts of potion of prolonged power. Um, with Bloodlust, these phases are going to be shorter. As you can see, they're about a minute 30. The fight ended, the last phase was about a minute, and then this phase was a minute 20. So the first takeaway right there from just looking at potion of prolonged power, I could have gotten more use and increase in DPS if I used it in the second or fourth phase. And then to keep track of everything, I like to use a OneNote or Google Docs just to keep track of what's going on. So potion of prolonged power usage could be better. Should use during P1 or P2. So the next thing I like to do, first I said all these two, is I like to look at my hit combo. Hit combo is very important. As you can see, I have it at 75%. Imonar is a fight where you'll never get it to be 100%. That should be your goal for every fight, is 100%. But because of the bridge phases where you can't actually attack anything and you're simply running over the bridge, you will lose your hit combo. So looking at this and looking at the damage done graph, my hit combo lines up pretty well with the bridge phases, so I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing that you could say is if I zoom in on my hit combo graph, I didn't zoom in. Okay, you see this fifth step, it's pretty long. That fifth step is pretty long because I'm not using G-Wave, and that's my Fist of Fury cast. More than likely. You could look into that more, but since I already know that from experience of how long Fist of Fury is, and how that takes up a big portion of your early hit combos, I can tell that that is where I casted it, and it's not terrible, but it's not that great either. Ideally, I would have Chi Wave, that would be 6, and my Fist of Fury would go out on 6. But overall, I'm really happy with my hit combo uptime. So now we just go through our damage buffs and we look to see if there's anything else we need to look at. Storm Earth Fire. That's pretty good uptime. Emperor's Cap, yeah, it'll be pretty high. There's really nothing else that you need to look at for damage buffs. As far as defensive buffs, the only time you really need to look at this is if you die, and you need to see if you used your defensive buff, such as Diffuse Magic, Touch of Karma, before or during the time period you died, just to see if there was a way that you could have lived. But since I did not die during this fight, I don't really need to look at that. Healing buffs, pretty much the same way. Because I'm a Windwalker, there's nothing I really need to look at here. Everything is either passive or done to me by an outside source. Movement speed buffs, we don't really care for. Raid buffs, this is another very important tab. We just need to double check and make sure we're actually using these things. We have our Augment Rune, we have our Flask, and we have our Well-Fed buff. So that's all good to go. If you're missing your Flask, your Well-Fed, or your Defiled Augmentation Rune, that would be a negative impact that you would need to address. Stances, Form, and Seals, as a Windwalker, you usually don't have anything in this category that you need to look at. So now that we looked at our buffs, we saw that we need to work on our prolonged potion power. It's time to look at our damage done. Damage done, it just tells you about the order of stuff that you have, tells you how much damage you did with each individual ability, how many casts you had, etc., etc. I just like to look at this to make sure stuff is kind of in order. Ideally, you'd have Blackout Kick, Fist of Fury, and Rising Sun Kick as your top 3, along with Strike of the One Lord and Touch of Death. So I just use this as a quick check to make sure I'm using my abilities in the right order. If Strike of the Windlord, for any reason, is above your Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, or Blackout Kick in a single target fight, then you might not be using it enough. With Imonar, because you have those long downtime phases, it actually benefits Strike of the Windlord because it has a longer cooldown. So if you use it right before a bridge, it will come off cooldown close to the end of the bridge phase. Where Rising Sun Kick will come off cooldown very shortly into the bridge phase and will just be sitting there off cooldown. So that's why my casts are very low for that and Fist of Fury, and the damage for Strike of the Windlord is up there. So understanding the fight is also very important to understanding your damage done, your buffs, and everything else we're looking at. So part of damage done is you're looking at the cast. As I said, because of the way Imonar works, we will have a lot of downtime. As you can see in my gaps, I have quite a bit. So it's important to look in between. Tiger Palm, we don't really care about the number of casts per se. The number one thing I usually look at is Fist of Fury. And then one thing I forgot to mention is in a fight like Imonar, it's very useful if you go to Resources, Enemies, Imonar, and find the periods where he is in the bridge phase so that you can look at cast accurately. So from 46 to minute 17. From 225 to 256. $339 to 415. And then the last bridge phase was 523 to 610. Overall, that's pretty significant. We have a total gap on the first phase of 31 seconds. 225 to 256 is 31 seconds again. 339 to 415 is 36 seconds. And then the last bridge phase was 47 seconds. So now we can add that total number of downtime up. And we have a total downtime in the fight. Sorry, I'm bringing up the calculator real quick. 31 plus 31 plus 36 plus 47 is 145 seconds, which is equal to 2 minutes and 25 seconds. If you look at the top of the Warcraft logs, our kill was 6 minutes and 59 seconds. So our uptime total is 432, or 32, I can't do math, 434. So now you can actually use that uptime total of 434 to find out whether or not you were actually casting the appropriate number of abilities. So Rising Sun Kick, I had 26 cast, has an 8-second cooldown. So 26 times 8 equals 208. 208 seconds, which if you divide that by 60, I get 346. So my Rising Sun Kick count could probably be higher. If I highlight it, you can see I'm doing pretty well here. I had two 10-second gaps, but because of gaps, and then my last cast was at 37. Bridge started 9 seconds later, so I missed one cast there. The first bridge phase ended at 117. My first cast was 2 seconds in. That's not bad. So that's 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Oh, that's 13-second gap. 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Oh, Rising Sun Kick, sorry. Rising Sun Kick does have a 10-second recharge. I'm thinking of with during haze, it's slower. So I'm actually doing it on time. I did miss the cast at the end. So phase 1 and 2, I lost one cast. Phase 3 started at 257, 256. First cast was at 256, so that's good. Now this is during Bloodlust, and now this is when you will actually get the 8 seconds. So 304 to 315, that's 11 seconds, that's 3 seconds I lost. Another 11 seconds, so that's 6 seconds, so that right there is about 1 RSK. We know the bridge starts at 339, so yep, I lost an RSK there. And then I can do the same thing for the 4th and 5th. I can tell you right now, it looks like I probably lost one here. And then in phase 5, we started at 6:10, 3 seconds in. I lost an RSK in phase 5. So, counting it up, I lost about 5 RSK cast. I said it had about 3 minutes and 45 seconds of uptime with it, and a 4-minute 34 fight. If I add in those 5, which is about 50 seconds, I have it right there. So my Rising Sun Kick, 26, I should have had 31. Fist of Fury, you can do the same thing. Fist of Fury is a little bit weirder because it has a longer cooldown. So I have 2 here, that's correct. Second phase started on 220 or 117. So 117 to 225 with a 24-second cooldown. Yeah, that's about right. That's a big gap. That's a 30-second plus gap. So that's something we should look at. Why do I have a 30-second gap here? If I add the Fist of Fury graph, I then can go to debuffs. I had no debuffs. Damage taken, I had no shrapnel blast, so I shouldn't have had to wait this long for a second Fist of Fury cast. So what I just did there was I zoomed into the area of Fist of Fury cast I wanted to take because I'm like, why is there such a gap between a 24-second CD and why did it take me 32 seconds to cast it? That's 8 seconds over. That's a pretty large gap. So I went to debuffs to see if I had any tank mechanic that I had to deal with. I didn't see anything there. So I went to damage taken to double check and make sure I didn't take damage from something that may not be listed under the debuffs. I have to get out of range of the boss. Because there was nothing listed under damage taken or debuffs, that was a misplay on me. Luckily, if I casted this 10 seconds earlier around 207, which would have been the appropriate number, I still want to have casted another Fist of Fury, but it is something to note. I need to double check and make sure I'm using Fist of Fury on CD. If I was on a fight that didn't have bridge phases, this could have costed me one cast easily throughout the fight, if not more than one. Let me close this and get back to this graph with the Fist of Fury. Now we're in the third phase, which we have Bloodlust. So it'll come up a little bit quicker. Around 20 seconds, 19 seconds. I believe with my haste it's right around 20. This phase started at 330 or 257, went to 339. That's about right. That's about right. So my Fist of Fury during that time was correct. Now phase 4 is 416 to 523. First cast was right at 416, so I'm actually happy with that. That's right on time. And then this should be, yep, that's right on time. Our last bridge phase starts at 523, which is actually very close to Fist of Fury coming off a cooldown. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is, so we actually have the right number of cast. And then we go to the last phase, which starts at 610, 611. First cast was 7 seconds in. Not too happy about that. We'll actually look at the timeline to see why. I can actually do that right now. So if you go to timeline, it actually gives this cool little graph down here that you can browse through. Your time in the fight is up top, and then what you cast is actually below it in icon form. So I wanted to look at 617. Now this is in seconds instead of minutes. So you just have to do 6 times 60 to find out what your time is, which should be 360 plus 17, should be 677. Okay, so right here, let's look. So I did Tiger Palm, Strike of the One Lord, Tiger Palm, Seth. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if I'm waiting for Seth to come off cooldown. Tell you right now, Strike of the One Lord should have been within Seth. Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick. Right now is when I should have casted Fist of Fury. Okay, I see why it was so late. So it was so late because I was waiting for Touch of Death, which is the correct move. So I should have delayed that 7 seconds to get Fist of Fury within Touch of Death. As far as Strike of the One Lord, I'm not so sure. It's a 32-second cooldown with the helm. This is at 617. Fight ending at 659. Yeah, you're cutting it kind of close. But I could delay the extra 6 seconds and fit 2 Strike of the One Lords in. Okay, so delaying that actually does make me happy. So because it's at 17, 641 is correct. Okay, so 2 Fist of Fury. Fist of Fury on cooldown. So overall, my Fist of Fury, I need to make sure I'm using it on cooldown, like here. I actually want to double check and see why that was. So it looks like I was waiting. Okay. So this Fist of Fury cast was actually okay because of how Imonar works with the bridge phases. I actually saved it for a Touch of Death that I knew was coming off cooldown towards the end of the phase, since I knew I wouldn't get another Fist of Fury off afterwards. It's actually the correct play, because I got Touch of Death, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, Seth off a cooldown, and then Fist of Fury. Kind of wish those lined up better, so the Rising Sun Kick and Blackout Kick would have been part of it. but this is a tight window where if you don't get your Rising Sun kick off quickly, then you could miss the entire. You can miss your Touch of Death going off when he is taking less damage than normal. Because when he's over on the bridge, casting his spell, where he gets a damage buff after it's interrupted, he does take less damage. Okay, so I'm happy with I accept this Fist of Fury not being on CD, and then this one being late is okay. Your two other major abilities that I like to look at is Strike of One Lord and Stormer's Fire. You do the same thing. Strike of the One Lord. Depending on the phase, probably only getting 1 or 2. I can tell you right now, phase 1, I'm only getting 2 in. I see that I have 2. Phase 2 is 1:17 to 2:25, so it's about 1:12 seconds. I should get 2 in. Actually, no, I should be able to get 3 in. So, I only have 2. I do that right at 1:17. 1:49. So 2 seconds will put me at 1:51. 2:21. So I missed the Strike of the One Lord. So 2:54. Yep. 3:28. That's a few seconds behind. But yeah. Okay, so I had the right number there. 4:15. Yep, that's good. Yep, 32-second cooldown, so that's right. Yeah, that's right. So phase 4 was good. So phase 1, 3, and 4 have been good. I lost one on phase 2. Last phase, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I only lost 1 Strike of One Lord throughout the fight. So my Fist of Fury was good. My Rising Sun kick, I should have had 31, and my Strike of One Lords, I should have had 12. Stormer's Fire. Now, for this, you have to make sure you're looking at the right one. Fixate is a spell you cast after you've already casted Stormer's Fire to target on a specific ad. I do that out of habit on priority targets that I want all of my clones to attack. So as you'll see, a lot of mine, all but one, line up pretty good. Stormer's Fire does have a 1.5 minute recharge. So with our timings, you should only be able to get 1, maybe very rarely 2. The first one you can get 2, and then phase 2 you can get 1, 2 at the very end. So you're getting about 10 seconds from this one. You can actually cast this a little bit sooner, I believe. Yeah, because this should have been coming off cooldown. I cast this at 19 seconds. Minute and a half. Yeah, I should have casted that a little bit sooner. I wouldn't have lost some time because Stormer's Fire lasts for 15 seconds without the wrist. So if I cast it 2:15 and he goes up in the air at 2:25, I lost 5 seconds of Stormer's Fire. So Ceph usage before bridge transition. So I need to be careful on that. So that's 5 seconds of uptime. I just did nothing. Bloodlust phase. So I use this at 2:15, so this would have been up at 3:45. Yeah, so I can only get 1. So I use this at 322, minute and a half. So I had 2 charges. So it come off just around 5 minutes. So I had 2 charges for this fight, for this platform. Because I could have used it right around the 5-minute mark. I used it right at the 5-minute mark. I would have had it up in time for this last Storm Within Fire. So I lost one in phase 4. In phase 4, last 5 seconds of time in phase 2. So that's actually a Storm Within Fire is a major cooldown for us. So this should have actually been 9. Chi Torpedo, we don't really care about. Tiger Palm, we don't really care about. Spin Crane Kick. You could argue that this should have been lower. I don't use Chi Wave, so sometimes I get overburdened with resources to where I have to use it. Sometimes it burns me. This should probably have been closer to 4, maybe 3. But 6, I'm not going to fret over too much. Crackling Jade Lightning, 5. We can look at that more when we look at the Emperor Capacitor. Touch of Death. That's another one we really need to look at. Touch of Death is a 2-minute cooldown. Since we use it on pull, we should be able to use it every 2 minutes afterwards. As you can see, I delay it somewhat, depending on what's going on, so I can line up some cooldowns. Looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I have all my Touch of Deaths cast. Energizing Elixir, I only used it 3 times when it's a minute cooldown. Because of the bridge transitions, it makes it a little weird. I should have used it a total of 5 times. Ideally, possibly 6. I always use Energizing Elixir off the start of the fight. So it looks like in phase 2 and 3 I didn't use it at all. With Bloodlust, that's kind of understandable. If I have Bloodlust, I'm getting a lot of Blackout Kick procs from our tier set. I found I really don't need to use Bloodlust at all in that phase. And since the Bloodlust phase in this fight is so short compared to the other phases, it's kind of understandable that I wouldn't be using Energizing Elixir. And then that is really the only thing we need to look at, other than our Crackling Jade Lightning. I waited on Crackling Jade Lightning till last, because I also need to use that to look at our buffs. So I like to pop it into the keep it here graph using the plus sign. You then go to buffs and you want to upgrade your, you don't want to put it up there. You just want to click on it to make this window. It's good to look at for various reasons. Looks like, so your long graph should be when you're Fist of Fury. If it's really long like this, it's probably a bridge transition. When it drops down, that's right after you use it. So we know our bridge transitions was like 339 to 415, so it makes sense that I have this really long gap here. The main thing I'm looking for here is how big my 20 stacks gap is. It took me 5 seconds to use my Emperor's Cap there. It took me about 5 seconds, which makes sense because that's about how long it takes to cast. So that's not bad. I could probably get better usage out of it, but overall, I'm not too terribly disgusted with it or happy. It's kind of meh. I can do better, but it's not awful. So we've gone over, so just as a recap, we've gone over our buffs, we've gone over our damage done, make sure those are about in the right place, and we've gone over our cast. So far, we need to work on our Rising Sun kick, we need to work and double check our FOF. If we are saving it for stuff, we need to double check and make sure it doesn't lose us a cast. It happened on this pool, it did not, but it could in the future. Strike of the One Lord, we lost a cast. And then Seth before bridge transition, we lost 5 seconds of uptime. And then in another phase, phase 4, we lost the entire usage of Stormers and Fire. So the last thing I like to look at is resources. When you click resources, it defaults you to hit points. I like to go to chi. What I'm looking at here is I'm checking to see if I was capped for a long time. And I'm also looking at wasted chi in this corner, or column. Basically tells you how much chi over you used and what you... If you're full chi and you do an ability or action that gives you chi, that's a wasted chi. So I was at 5 chi and I Tiger Palmed once. Sometimes I found it's kind of unavoidable. Ideally it's 0, but it's an unfortunate side effect of our tier 21 that I found. Focus is 1. That's the blackout kick. This should never be 1. You should be able to spin king kick to drop it down. That's what I tried to do if I'm full, and Fist of Fury, Rising Sun Kick, Strike of the Windlord are all on CD. I'll spin crane kick, use my focus as 1 proc. Or, sorry, blackout kick proc. Focus as 1 is what they call it in Warcraft logs, because that's what it's logged as. And then Energizing Elixir, I wasted 15 and I gained 15. So that's interesting. So I used it 3 times. Energizing Elixir. Yeah, so I used it 3 times. That's 0, so that's... Looks like there might be a bug with Energizing Elixir. Because Tiger Palm, I strike the one lower down to 0, then I energize Elixir. I cast Fist of Fury down to 2, Rising Sun Kick, and then I Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm. Huh. That's really interesting. So it looks like Energizing Elixir might be bugged on here. This is why you need to just not take these values on the table as a word. You actually need to go into the timeline and look at them and see, hey, what's going on? So let's zoom in on this. So I'm at 2, I cast Strike on the One Lord, and then I bump it up. That's really interesting that it says I gained 10, wasted 5. But that's not what actually happened. Okay, so that Energizing Elixir was actually okay. And then let's look at our third one. That's weird. Oh yeah, so I spinning crane. So this is one of the instances where I spinning crane kicked down to 3 to use my Energizing Elixir. So it looks like all my Energizing Elixirs were actually pretty good as far as chi gain and wasted. I really only wasted 2 in the fight, which is unfortunate. Oops. If you do click these links, they will send you, or the icons I should say, it will send you to the Wowhead link for it. It's pretty cool if you want more information on the dedicated page, but just like then, it was an accident. So as far as my Energizing Elixir and chi usage, I wasted 2 chi. Ideally it would be 0, but not too terrible. Next thing to look at would be Energizing Elixir and my energy. See how much wasted energy I had? Oh crap. Now this, I probably will actually have a lot of wasted energy. Because a lot of times I use my energizing elixir purely for the chi. Because I'm about to do a lot of bursts with my touch of death. I found that I really have a lot of energy. There's very few times where I need more energy, because if I just get more energy, then the only thing I can do is Tiger Palm back to back, and that gets rid of hit combo, and that's really, really bad. So, as far as usage, so I'm at 125. This is the beginning of fight, so I'm popping it to get chi for Touch of Death. So yeah, I will have a lot of wasted resources there. Looks like it was the same principle here, to get just purely to get chi. That was purely to get chi, and then this one here. This one was a mix, so I got 5 chi, and I was pretty low on. So I still wasted quite a bit, because I was at 50. So this says 200 gain. Huh. I only get 150 energy, so I would gain 150 energy. Oh. I bet it's because I'm at 50, so 50 plus 150 is 200. No. That's interesting. Huh. I'm at 58, so 58 plus 50 is 208, which is my wasted 208. Okay. That's interesting. So, my energizing elixir is the first one you're always going to do with high energy, just because the way the Windwalker start off the fight with Touch of Death. Second one, I could have been a little bit better. Third one was okay. I could have probably, if you Tiger Palm, then you have chi, so then you would waste chi. It's a balancing act. It's very hard to get perfect. Oops. You just kind of gotta work with what you did, with what you get with energizing elixir, and make it really worth the chi, in my opinion. Energizing elixir is very OP for the chi and not necessarily the energy, because the way Windwalker is resource capped and the way hit combo works. So that's really everything I need to look at. The only other thing I could have really looked at would have been Whirling Dragon Punch. Whirling Dragon Punch is a really weird ability to look at personally, so it's why I didn't really do it. It is a 24-second cooldown, so you could just go by cooldowns and be like, okay, did I get the max number here? Which is ideally what you would do. But it also requires Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick to be on cooldown to use. So if you're saving Fist of Fury for like a Touch of Death combo for 5 seconds, then you may lose out on a Whirling Dragon Punch. But saving that Fist of Fury for Touch of Death is so very critical for your burst with Gale Burst artifact trait that it's worth it. At least on a single target fight like Imonar is. But we can go ahead, and since this is really the last thing I need to look at, we can go ahead and look at it. 9 seconds, yeah, that's about right. I could probably cast this second or two early, but that's about when Fist of Fury comes off cooldown. And depending on how you do your intro, you either have to Rising Sun Kick again, or you have to Rising Sun Kick right after Fist of Fury for the first time. So, yeah, that's about right. 32 seconds, yeah, so we're only getting 2 in phase 1. Minute 24, yeah. You'll notice that Whirling WDP, Whirling Dragon Punch, will always be quite a few seconds into one of my phases, just because you do have to have Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick on CD. 24 seconds, yep. That's 30 seconds. Does that... Okay, that's fine. So, I get all of them. I just gotta be careful about... Whirling Dragon Punch. I just need to be careful on making sure Fist of Fury and Resistance Kick line up to where I can use Rolling Dragon Punch on cooldown. Phase 3 is Lust. So 10 seconds in. 324. Yeah. So technically I could have gotten another one in phase 3, but that's really all I'm getting in because you have that Fist of Fury cast time, which you want all the ticks, and it's a 4-second cast. It's about 3.24 with Lust. Plus you have your GCD, at least a second. It's 425. Plus you have Strike of One Lord, which is higher priority. So you got like about 6 seconds right there. Plus the Tiger Palms to use those abilities. Yeah, I'll take 2. So yeah, that I would say 2 maxes there is fine. Last phase, or not last phase, phase 4. Yeah, that's pretty good. 508 comes off 523. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. Then the last phase, 11 seconds in. Ooh, that's not good. 11 seconds. That's 47, which that's 13 seconds. Fight ends 12 seconds later. It's 25. It's 25 seconds. I don't like that the phase started 11 seconds before my first Rolling Dragon Punch. But like I said, you got a minimum of 6 seconds really before you would even be able to use it if you're going in with full chi. So I'll take it. You just need to be careful about using it on CD and making sure your Fist of Fury and Resistance Kick are on cooldown. Overall, I'm actually pretty happy with the Rolling Dragon Punch usage. And then a very minor thing that could have increased my DPS was Touch of Karma, not using that on cooldown. It's actually kind of hard on this fight to use Touch of Karma to its full effectiveness, unless in phase 2, 3, and 4 you're walking over the shrapnel mines. Phase 1, there's really no damage going out while he is standing in front of you except for the Shock Lance, and that's not even guaranteed to come onto you, because that's a random. This Electrify, I believe is what it's called. So he does it in phase 1 and 3, and Powered Electrify is phase 4. This is actually pretty random, and it's not even that much damage. Yeah, so 2.4 mil and 1 phase. That's not even half my health. Touch Karma, you can use up to half your health, so it's hard to say if I could have used Touch Karma more effectively. I could have used it more. It just probably wouldn't have been effective at all. As far as other damage taken, I did take 2 conflagrations. Huh, that's weird. So I hit conflagration twice. That conflagration twice. So I actually hit conflagration 3 times on the bridge. So my bridge, walking across the bridge, that needs to be improved. I hit 3 orbs. They're actually not that hard to avoid. You just have to be patient. I was probably trying to hurry a little bit too much. Pulse grenade. someone hit me with pulse grenade. That's kind of hard to tell if it's my fault or their fault with these logs. Because if someone with pulse grenade runs into you, you can't help that. There's nothing you can do. Same thing with stasis trap. Stasis trap on this fight is those green runic circles, where if you step onto it, it causes you to be stunned for 8 seconds, and then a healer has to dispel you to get rid of it, otherwise you're just sitting there. That's actually probably how I took a conflagration. Yep. So that's right there is how I took a conflagration. Because I got hit by a stasis trap, or I was setting it off because there was no one else around me that needed to. For that, I highly suggest you use the replay tool if you're advanced logging. Otherwise, you'll have to use someone's recording of the video. If you record your own on Twitch, or just for self-recording for either YouTube, or maybe you just want to record what you do in WoW as for history and you don't want to upload it anywhere. You'd have to look at that. Stasis traps I'm actually pretty good at avoiding. Orbs, not so much. But it looks like I got hit by an orb because I was in stasis. Debuffs. To actually see if I was in stasis during that, I can go to debuffs. Traps is a stasis. Throw it up here. Then go to damage taken. Hide everything. So yeah, I was in stasis. Ooh. No. I got hit by the conflagration before stasis, and I probably tried to get through it too quick and rolled into something or someone about to trigger it. Okay. So yeah. So I got trapped because I got hit by a conflagration. It slowed me down, and I was worried about avoiding it, about getting to the end, and I probably rolled into a trap or rolled into someone setting off a trap. Yeah. Electrify, empowered electrify, gathering power, we can't really avoid. Shrapnel blast. That's unavoidable damage that goes off when your tanks pop it. We do the tank pop strat where we have melee in range without empowered pulse grenades or without the charging blast. Stand on the left or right foot, and then you just switch feet, and then the tank runs over the shrapnel just to keep the platform clear. So that's what that's from. Power electricity we can't do anything about. Blast wire, that's from the tanks running it. So yeah. So from this damage taken screen, I really need to work on avoiding the big giant balls of death. And because I got hit by a ball, and on one of the bridges, that actually caused me to get thrown into a trap because I was trying to overcome the slow debuff that comes from the green orbs. So I've covered the summary tab. Everything was in order for my gear, talents, stats. I've covered my damage done. Everything looked in about the right order. Damage taken. I just looked at that. I can improve my damage taken. I can improve avoiding the orbs. People don't really look at the damage taken as much as they do the damage done and their cast and their buffs. But damage taken is actually pretty huge because that causes you to, if you're dead or you're taking more damage than what you should, that causes your healers to work harder, and that could ultimately end up in a wipe if for some reason they run out of mana and can't heal, or you're so low that you end up dying. Because it's very easy for me to get into that stasis and then just die because of something else. Because I can't actually do anything when I'm stunned. Healing, I'm a one walker. We don't need to look at healing. Threat, I'm not a tank. We don't need to look at tank. We looked at buffs. Debuffs, we didn't really look at. The only time I would look at at debuffs is if I was in a fight where I had a really low uptime when I was on the boss. I'd be like, okay, why do I have this abnormally low uptime when I am on the boss? Let's go to the debuff, see if I have something. I could look at the sleep canister. As you can see, I got it 4 times, but I got dispelled instantly. And because I'm a Windwalker, I can get in and out really fast, so it really didn't impact me at all. If I had a bunch of sleep canisters where I was asleep for the full, like, 10, 20, 12 seconds, that it can actually put you to sleep if you're not dispelled, then yeah, I would have a lot lower damage output. But that's not the case. And then we talked about Stasis Trap. Deaths, I have no deaths. Interrupts, I do not take care of the interrupts on Imonar. And the interrupts really aren't... It doesn't matter who does the interrupts as long as you have one person, then it doesn't really matter. To look at it, it's only one. We actually have our hunter do it, our raid lead, because then he can choose to do it when he wants to. So interrupts, I would just have 0, so it doesn't really matter. The spells, I can't actually dispel anything on this fight. If you're a healer, this would actually be really useful, because you have to dispel the tanks running over the traps to clear the bridge, and then you have to dispel the sleep canister off the DPS and other healers like right away. So making sure all the healers are dispelling, that would be very useful for a raid leader or a healer. We looked at resources and we looked at the cast. There's really not much more to go over. My takeaway is I actually had a pretty clean fight. I just have to work on the minor details, which is Rising Sun Kick on cooldown on each platform. I lost one. I lost one Strike of the Windlord. And my Ceph usage could be a little bit better. If I go to the summary of all friendlies, damage done, those 3 things very easily what's keeping this 92% overall and this 90% eye level parse from being a 95% eye level parse. Because if I go to myself under the damage done tab, each of my Rising Sun kicks does an average of 2.79. If I missed 5, I'm losing out on about 14 million DPS. Just from missing, or not 14 million DPS, but 14 million damage just from those 5 casts. As far as Strike of the Windlord, my average is 6.55 mil. So I missed 1 cast. So right there is 13 plus 6.55. 20.5 mil DPS I just lost. And that doesn't count my Earth Spirit damage and Fire Spirit damage from the lost Ceph usage and the 5 seconds uptime. So, just to see what those casts alone, not counting Ceph, would be, that would take my overall from 705.97 million to 726.47. If we divided that by our fight length, which you gotta remember, you gotta change it into seconds, so 6 times 60 is 360. Luckily we're at 659, so you could always do 7 times 60, which is 420, minus 1, which is 419. And I go from I actually went from 1,681,000 to 1,733,000. So I actually lost 50k DPS simply from those 6 casts, and that doesn't include my Storm, Earth, and Fire miscast. So that's why it's very important to go over your logs, because any little bit can help you and will help you re-clear. this was our first kill. A lot of guilds will have trouble re-clearing after their first kill because they're really locked in, super focused about doing their best on that first kill, and then they lose sight. They're like, oh yeah, I already killed it, I can just do whatever and we'll kill it again. No, you always need to be improving and getting better. Hopefully all this helps. And I'm actually kind of curious now about what that 1.733 million would actually put me percentage-wise for my eye level. So if you want to look at that, this is a little bit extra. If you want to look at that, you can actually go to rankings. Go to Windwalker Monk. So 1.733. Would actually put me 115, 116. So that will put me top 120. And right now, I'm at 680, I believe. I'm at 242. So that's 130 spots that I can improve. That's actually a pretty dang large percentage group. That's not getting better gear. That's not getting lucky on procs and lucky on fight timings. Because there are a couple of timings in that fight that are pretty crappy for me. Because I have long cooldowns coming off CD right when he transitions into a bridge phase. So that means I have to hold him the entire length across the bridge. Pure execution of my class could have got me up to 115. And again, that didn't include the additional Ceph that I missed and the 5 seconds uptime on the Ceph. That's why it's very important after every fight, even if you get a good parse, you double check what you used and you just try to get better. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I know it seemed kind of scatterbrained at first. This is my first time doing this type of video. Usually when I review logs, I usually go back and forth between the different tabs because I'm like, oh, I want to check this. And I'm like, I want to check this now. And then I start looking at other people and then back to myself. It's really not a solid fluid thing. If you have any feedback about how I could make this better, just please let me know.